All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you again for joining us for another Microsoft Teams Superheroes call. I'm going pretty casual today, calling in from home, but that's how we do things here. And I'm very excited for the call today, as always, but we have an amazing guest. I'm going to let her introduce herself here in a second. I just want to set a reminder that if you have any questions, please post them into the event window if you're watching this live. If you're watching it on demand, you'll see at the very end of the call that we have a place where we can keep this conversation going via Teams. Thank you again for joining us and hope you enjoy the content here. I'm going to let my wonderful guest introduce herself, if you would, please, Susanna.
Hello, guys. My name is Susanna. I'm from Brazil. I work for VALE. VALE is a mining company present in a lot of countries all over the world. It's based in Brazil, most of the headquarters. It's a big producer of iron ore and other types of metals. My background is focused on corporate travel, more than 12 years. And now I am an IT analyst for 5 years about. And I'm working in a team that's focused on focus to automatize tasks considering repetitive using technology.
Awesome. So can you, Susanna, thank you for the background here. Can you give us a little bit of background on the business challenge that you were facing at VALE before we get into what you guys did? Because I love your solution, and we were chatting before this call for everybody here. I selfishly have been telling customers all over the world about the work you all have done, because it's a very clever way to approach a common challenge that we're hearing from customers around the world. So we'd love to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, sure. As I said, VALE is a big company. It's a global company, and we have about 100,000 users. And we have a service desk that concentrate more, almost the most important things that the users need, like issues with internet, issues with SAP, the ERP that VALE uses, issues with Outlook, and so on. There are so many issues that the users can call for the help desk and ask for help or open a ticket. And we have a lot of time spending on the users waiting to be attended. And we decided to have a different approach, trying to offer an option to change the way the users look for information or look for help. And the main problem was to reduce the number of the tickets the users use it to open, because sometimes it was just a question. Actually, they don't need to open a ticket to be helped. But our challenge was how we would do this. We had to change the way of the users look for information, because in a simple question, they just pick up the phone and call to the help desk. So we decided to create a bot and try to transfer part of those requests that was simple and repetitive questions addressed to the service desk.
People could almost self-serve. That's what's happening, right? For the simple request that you don't need to spend time opening and closing tickets on the service desk. And this is we hear this so often. You wanted to help people kind of automate the process and self-serve, right?
Yeah, that's it. Although the service desk works 7 days and 24 hours a day, we know that we could reduce also the price of the amount we paid for this type of attendment. So every time we have nowadays we have a different prices for those type of service. So every time we have a ticket being opened by phone is a price. Every time the bot answers the question is another price, much smaller than the previous one. So this was the first version of our assistant. After 6 months, we could see that the bot was really helpful. And also the help desk, every time the users requests any information that they knew that information was inside the knowledge base of the bot, they suggested, oh, do you know the virtual assistant already? Please check if you can talk to her in the next time. So it's like an education, and one by one, we were able to drive almost 30% of our users' requests to the bot.
But that's first of all, amazing stat. Do you know roughly how many requests that would represent? I find that fascinating.
I don't have the numbers here.
No worries.
Sorry.
I mean, 30% is still a great option, especially for a company your size.
But I can give you amount of users monthly. It was about 1,000 users a month.
You took 1,000 requests per month that were coming in that were fairly simple questions that you were solving on the service desk, and you helped essentially allow these 1,000 people a month to self-serve via the bot you created. Is that right?
Yes, I'm talking about the three first months was about 1,000, but the other 6 months was much more than this. But I'm sorry, but I don't have the numbers here.
I mean, 1,000 is amazing. I'm sure there's people on the phone right now getting very excited.
Yeah, but by the time we saw the users were already interacting a lot and asking for more information. Sometimes they enter in the bot and ask for HR information and for travel information. That's an impactful subject. And we decided to add more content in the bot. But the problem was how we create new bots and do not confuse for the users to look for that bot or the bot for travel, the bot for HR, the bot for procurement. So this was a challenge for us, the second challenge actually. And then we came up with the idea to use the same bot, but add like a corporate bot, where we could offer to the users a way to choose in a menu which subject this user is looking for. And as
Can I recap that real quick, Susanna? Sorry to interrupt there. So you had such great success with the service bot for the IT desk that your users started saying, can we expand the scope essentially of this experience to allow me to book travel and get help in other parts of just my day job as an employee at VALE? And so as a result, you looked into creating separate bots, right? Or expanding the scope of your original bot, is that right?
Yeah, the first thought was to create separate bots. But as we were using Skype for publish the bot and also Telegram, would be difficult if we create so many bots with so different of other types of contents. When the user starts to look for the information, probably they didn't know what's the name of the bot for travel, what's the name of the bot for HR. So as they already knew the first version of the bot, we decided to include everything in one unique place. Because if we segregated it in different bots, probably we would not have the same users, or we would have a long time to concentrate or to inform to the users which bot talks about what. So the decision was to concentrate it in one place, in the same Skype account, and the users just go there and choose which content he wants.
So someone just posted this, and I think this is exactly where you're heading. They I'll publish this out, but they said we need a bot to find the right bot to use, and that's basically what you're saying, right?
Probably
we see this so often. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say, actually, we thought about that. Okay, in one time we will have to create a bot to help the users to find another bot. So it's crazy. But here, as we have in Brazil, most of the users concentrated in Brazil, about 50,000 users, communication is always a challenge. As how we cannot optimize it, it's much better than we thinking in different solutions or perfect solutions.
Yes, just to solidify this, I've had a chat with our team's engineering group before because we've got quite a few bots in our private team store, and they're all great, but you run into the challenge which you foresaw at VALE, which was at some point we're going to have 10 different bots for 10 separate use cases, and then we're kind of compounding the problem that we're trying to solve in teams, which is how do we make it easier to get work done, right? How do we bring work to us in a way that's more simple? So I love the foresight that you had at VALE. And again, this is one of the reasons I really was excited to have you share what you've all done. So can we, I'm gonna skip to the slide with Mina. Can we talk a little bit about Mina and what you ended up creating?
Yeah. So Mina is the virtual assistant of VALE. And as I said, in the first version of Mina, Mina just talk about IT services. That's the main contents of VALE, concentrated in most of the problems of the users. But after 6 months, as we saw that this really worked, and then the users start to interact more and more. The business come to us and said, "Oh, okay, I want to add my content also there." And the second content was travel, because actually I was part of the travel team a long time ago, and I knew a lot of information about the policies and the questions, the common questions that the users raised. And the third one was HR, procurement, and so on. And we still have demands to Mina to add new contents. Mina now speaks English also, and it's published on Teams, on Telegram, and other channels that I'm going to show in the next slides. And in the second version, after we decided to create a corporate bot, we have a simple bot where we just use it, but the bot framework, the Q&A maker, and the Lewis. Only this, but by the after a year about, we saw the users start to require more and more, and we have to add some functionalities to integrate and to help us to understand also the feedbacks, the insights, and what else the users want to see.
This is great. Thank you for setting that baseline, because the reason we do these calls is not just to jump to the final solution, right? But it's more showing the journey of getting there, because it never happens over one day, right? You don't just end up with Mina. And so it's great for everybody on the call to understand, if you're not familiar, Bot Framework, Q&A Maker, Lewis are all available services that you have with Microsoft. But it's great to hear that it sounds like, and I'm paraphrasing here, correct me if I'm wrong, Susanna, but at some point, you needed to increase the capabilities of Mina. And so it had to go beyond just those initial services we had. I know you're going to talk us through that, but is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Because it's not just, the chatbot is not just a text. In the end, the users want to give their opinion, they want to add the functionalities, and also we as a governance team, we need to understand what the users want. If the content it's providing the information they want, if it's clear or not. If they are looking for different information that we have to think about to add new contents and so on. It's a daily analysis that you have to do and be very close to those users, because it's very easy to the user just abandon this channel that's so helpful and go to the help desk or to a fellow to ask for an information, or try to another channel to look for the information.
Awesome. So can we get a little preview of Mina, and then
sure.
We'll come back to and I just need you to share your screen. But what we'll do for everybody on the call is once Susanna shows Mina, we'll come back and we'll talk through a bit of the architecture and how Mina was actually created in a little bit more detail. She was kind enough to share this with us. Donna, once you share your screen, I'll pop it up.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. All right, that should be up in a second. And you should be live.
It's done?
Yeah, you're all good.
Okay, so let me minimize here. So guys, Mina is on Teams because Vale already migrated from Skype to Teams about 6 months almost, and Mina is already there. And it's quite easy to look for Mina. Mina is assigned here as an application, and once it's installed, Mina it's already available. So a difference of a Skype and Teams is it's the bot doesn't reinitiate the conversation. So the bot is the conversation is continuous. So it's nice. It's a better user experience. It's a better way to the user interact with, because sometimes the users within the Skype, some inactivity time, about 5 seconds, the Skype reinitiate the conversation and the users has to ask again the question. So I already set Mina to speak English, okay? But I'm gonna say hi again. Sometimes we have some instability, but I'm gonna say hi again. So, okay, my name is Mina. I'm going through training. And in English, Mina, once you set the configuration, the options of language and locations, Mina just presents to you the options that she speaks. So HR and IT services are available only in English. And in Portuguese, we have other contents, but as I said, in English, we just see the options that are available. I'm going to IT services.
I was going to say real quick for everybody on the call, this is an adaptive card that we actually have built into the bot framework as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but really simple solution that a lot of folks are adding onto their bots, which is fantastic.
Yeah, we changed it. We are using cards in some of our contents. Sometimes it's not possible to use because the texts are very large, and in the cards we have to use small phrases, small sentence. So here is a greeting. So she's telling that she speaks about IT services, and she gives some tips, that some information that she can talks about. You can talk to the agent. If you want to change the subject, you just type subject. And there are also options to list your tickets that are open or not. Query the tickets under your name or under the name of another person. So I'm gonna ask her to list my tickets.
So is this your view, Susanna, that you'd have as tickets from an IT desk, or is this for me as a user where I'd see my open tickets?
Yes, these awesome. Are tickets that are I have been raised in some awesome. Moment. I can choose my name or another email, but I'm gonna choose mine. So she found one. Yeah, and she's saying that's closed. Okay, I don't have open tickets, but if I have, she would give me a list of all the tickets that are open or closed. I don't open too much tickets. So I'm gonna come back to the previous.
That's a really good point, though. I love that you inadvertently made that error there, because this is a really important point for those creating and forwarding into bots, is the response that your bot has if there's an error. And yours seems very informative right there on what happens when there's a typo, right? Is it actually gives you the options. And again, really small thing, but we see this a lot with users, how important this response is when the bot doesn't understand. So I love that creation right there.
Yeah, it's very important because you don't make the users get lost. Sometimes if the bot just answer, okay, I didn't understand what you say, maybe the users doesn't know what to do. If he has to type another time, or if he has to wait for the bot to answer something else. So it's very helpful when you already offer some tips to the users. Okay, and HR is we have a different layout. It's not an open conversation. We have like a decision tree.
That's awesome.
And here you can choose some options. I'm gonna
and
choose
so this
payroll.
is just you have connected these into existing services that you already had, right? Because obviously I'm guessing, you know, VALE is such a big company, had a payroll department, pension, taxes, all the things you see here. And what you're doing is directing users into these existing services and investments that you've already made, correct? But in a way that's easier for them to connect with.
Not exactly. We have a portal where we create the knowledge base in JavaScript language, and we connect via direct line this portal with the bot and publish it on Teams.
Got it.
So each content we have here, all of them are like this. So every time we have a decision tree, we connect via direct line to this portal that we have where the users include the knowledge base or create or add or adjust or so on. Okay, so after she answers my question, she offers a feedback.
While we're waiting on that real quick, Susanna, there's a question on that typo on subject. If you went back in and edited that text, would that actually change Mina's response? My guess would be not, because she'd already responded, but correct me if I'm wrong.
If I text directly the question here?
No, so you remember when you typed in subject and it was misspelled the first time and you got the response that was saying, sorry, you know, there's a bunch of different options that you can choose. Yeah, this one right here. If you would have edited your subject right there, the one you misspelled at the top of your top right hand side of your screen, would that actually have changed Mina's response? Does that make sense?
Yes, sometimes she answers a different way, but not for all contents. If I am inside the child bot, because actually, guys, Mina is I'm going to explain the architecture, but Mina is an orchestrator. So every time I choose, let me go back there. Every time, once I'm here, I'm talking to the orchestrator. Once I choose the content, I am in the child bot. So depending on the child bot I'm talking with, we have a different response. If I type the same subject or the same word or the same sentence twice. But in other, for example, in this one in HR that I am talking to, in this content, we don't have the option to type. I can just choose on the menu. If I type something like this, HR, the bot's gonna tell me that something wrong because he's not expecting this and he's going to repeat again or to offer me the feedback. So if I'm saying that my question wasn't answered or my question was not answered completely, it goes to the feedback components that we have in JavaScript in our portal, and it's a way to the user respond or type anything he wants. So I'm going to make a suggestion.
Just to clarify, Susanna, actually, someone asked this fairly recently, is if a question isn't answered, I'm assuming we talked about this before, but you're building this into the database of questions and into the child bots themselves, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. If I type here that my question was not answered, I will be able to type what exactly was the problem. So I'm going just to say it's a test. But I could type anything. So after I type, the users receive this feedback and the curator of this content can check the information the user has been updated.
That's really cool.
So she makes a farewell and then she restarts the content again. Okay, so let's go back. Any questions? Any other
That's
questions?
great. While you're moving, again, I just want to reiterate, I've spoken a lot to our team's design team and engineering, and I spend a lot of time helping customers create not just bots, but various extensible components of the Teams platform. And the time, again, this is why I was so excited for you to share this experience with users, is the time you spent on these little things, like the thank you for your opinion, I'll try to learn by our next meeting, are so important for the end user experience, that acknowledgement. Because if you don't acknowledge you know, a user when you may not have an answer for their question, or you don't get back to them, you know, in this point when you're talking about the test, it really turns off users, and then they'll never go back and use the bot again potentially, and you run that risk. And so the amount of time you guys spent to make sure that this was, you know, very simply user friendly, I think is fantastic. So thank you so much for walking through a lot of this.
Yeah, it's a very thin relationship. So
Yeah.
the users and the bot may have a very close relationship, but at the same time, they can be very far from their expectations. So we have to be every time looking for and try to check their feedbacks to understand if we are meeting them. Okay, can we go back to the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
One sec, I'll pull these up.
So just to share a little bit of what we have, everything we have for Mina is inside of Azure, the cloud. Vale has the cloud of Microsoft, and most of the services we are using are Microsoft also. We have the Cosmos DB. So once the user interact with, he can interact with Telegram, Teams, and Intranet also. That's a new channel. As I said, we have the master bot that we call the orchestrator. So Mina is the orchestrator. So if it's the first time the user are interacting, Mina is going to ask for these users about the location and the language, and we recorded it in the Cosmos DB. So in the next time this user talks with Mina again, we already have this information, and we will just show exactly what we have of the settings that this user informed to us. So once he chooses in which content he wants or which matter he wants, we have the open conversation, that's the IT services content, and the other contents, that decision tree, that we call child bots. So once we are in the child bots, we have the travel, benefits of HR, mobility, another subject of HR, and also procurement. These are our actual subjects. And every time the bot answer a question, we present to the survey. That's the feedback way to us to have their feedback, their insights. And we also recorded it in Cosmos DB. It's just to give an overview of what we have in terms of architecture. Okay. We also use Lewis, but it's just a small piece. It's quite simple, but to build everything like this, we have to have we had a journey and to discover and to understand what were the requires of the business. It's also a journey, so it's better also to walk with them very close, because we get more insights. When when IT does things alone, we are very far from the requirements and the needs of and also the expectation of the users.
Well said. So, you know, in addition to leveraging things like Cosmos, just to make sure I understood that correctly, which will help you build your repository of questions and answers, you know, based on feedback, you're also consistently engaging with the user because you want to make sure what you're creating is valuable for them, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then I'll skip to the technologies and the deliveries.
Yeah, as I said, we have nowadays we have more components and capabilities on Mina, but most of them are from Microsoft. So we use the bot framework as a framework. Lewis for the IT services content. We also use the Node.js for some things that we have to integrate or we have to create, like the feedback component, and also proactive message that you also have. We have the JavaScript also, because we have to create a portal where the users can add or adjust and check the logs and check the feedbacks also, and extract some, for example, reports, and also Power BI to publish the KPIs. So we have KPIs of conversation, users, with which location this user is, if he is a manager or if he's a staff. So we have a lot of KPIs, and also the time the user talks with the bot, if it's in the business time or out of the business time. So we have a lot of detailed KPIs. And the features we have recently released are the feedback component that I showed, the proactive message, because this one it's really helpful, because open doors for us to automatize process as approval, because Mina nowadays are sending proactive message to process that requires some approvals. And also the live chat. So for IT services, every time the users wants to open a ticket or check a ticket, instead of call to the IT service or to the service desk, he can open a ticket using the live chat through Mina.
Awesome. So real quick on that proactive message, if I can just quick question there. So Mina is now reaching out to users directly to speed up the process for approvals. You're saying? That's awesome.
Yeah. We have recently delivered a project that we call change management. So every time we have a change management being opened for Asia, Pacific, I'm not going to remember all the places, but it's on Asia and Pacific. Mina receives this request by a system that we have where this request is open, and she calls through Teams this user as an approver to inform them, look, there is an approval that's going to that has a deadline of 24 hours, like this, and she gives some information of which system is that change, of who has been open, and so on. Some descriptions of the change.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and for channels, the first one was Skype. We migrated to Teams. We don't use Skype anymore. We have also Telegram. Intranet was the recent one, and WhatsApp is coming soon.
So quick question on that, Susanna, is your first iteration, there was a question on here on the time to create the initial working version. So that first one that you posted in Skype, do you remember roughly how long that took to get that up and running?
About 3 months.
3 months. And then how much time is spent now? And by 3 months, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, from our chat before this call, you could do this much faster. Like I've created a Q&A bot in a half hour, right? And I've never written a line of code in my life, but to have a bot that's effective as Mina, you want to spend a lot of time on the intricate details that we've talked about multiple times over this call, right? So I still see 3 months as a pretty quick timeline. So it's amazing what you guys have done there. But now, given all of these additional features are rolling out, like the feedback component, proactive messages, live chat, do you know roughly how much time around your team is spent working on this weekly or daily even?
Nowadays, it's my full day. I am focused on a lot of projects that are being raised for my team. The users also already know the technology, and they know what are the possibilities they have to use it and how to integrate it with other applications. So it's more known nowadays, but we are working on it about 2 years. I can calculate half a year, 1 year and a half about. We were still working on framework. I think in the past 6 months we evolve a lot and we gain maturity to make things more stable.
Got it. Awesome. And then are you the only one working on this full day, or do you have a team that's also putting their full day into this?
No, it's only me and one developer.
Pretty amazing what you guys have done.
Yes.
And I will forward here to I believe this is your last one, which is the lessons learned. And for everybody on the call, I think this one's really important. What I had asked Susanna when we first started chatting is one thing I really want to share is if you had to start over from the very beginning, what advice would you give to the folks who are going to be listening to this call, who are embarking on their own journeys, if you will?
Yeah, I think there are some points that you cannot jump. You have to go through, especially because when I started in this journey, I didn't know anything about chatbots or virtual assistants and artificial intelligence. So everything was quite new, and we began this journey about 2 years ago. And I think what I would have done differently, I would bring the business closer to us, and I would communicate it more, because sometimes when you show something very interesting to the business, you have to meet their expectations. So, as I said, the chatbots is something that is in development. So if you promise things that you don't know how effort you are going to spend on it, you may frustrate the expectations the users has on it. So this happens a little bit with us in some moments. I think we are trying to revert it, but the fact is, as much as you give, as much as you are asked for to give. And I think that's the most important lesson I have learned. So I have to communicate more, and I have to bring the business very close to us. But if I can share comments related to our journey here, I think it's very important to who is beginning now, the partnership. So if you have a partnership with other vendors, other customers, also conference, because gives you more information about the technology, the capabilities, and how you can start. Because when you start with no direction, you get lost probably. So every time you start knowing where you want to reach, where you want to go, it's easier to go, and it's easier to reach what it's easier to do your path. I think easier, in an easier way.
To your credit, though, on your first point, I know, and forgive me using the term, but it sounds like your initial iteration, around IT service was maybe a bit selfishly created to reduce the amount of time that was spent just answering questions, and you want to be more proactive. But the iterations of Mina clearly were listening to your users, right? And the requests they had from the success of your product. So of course you could have started that sooner, but it's awesome to hear. I mean, you guys did listen, to your credit, and did evolve as a result. So it's great to see. One question actually Bart just posted on that note real quick is, exactly what I just said is your initial iteration of the bot was about saving IT services time, right? Answering repetitive questions. You touched on it earlier, so Bart might have missed it, but I think your number was that you saved, was it 30% of time reacting to questions? Yeah, which is a massive number.
Yeah, it's a big number, but as if you see the amount of VALE, the whole piece that VALE is inside, I think it's not a big number for me.
Yeah.
Actually, we could have saved more.
Yeah, fair enough. 30% is pretty damn good, though. I'm sure there's a lot of folks on IT teams that'll be listening now or on this call later that imagine what they could do with 30% extra time in their week, And that's really cool. Anything else that you want to share here that was really lesson learned or feedback you'd want to give for your peers?
Yeah, the feedback is to study about the technology, and also get closer to the IT partners, because we learned a lot with the architecture team, also other partners of IT. So we had the engagement of the team as a team. So it was very important to us to be everybody together in this journey with us, and this helped us to evolve and also to understand what were our gaps and what we had to evolve and what we have to learn and so on.
Oh, that's fantastic. We have covered pretty much all the questions that have come in. Susanna, you're absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for all the time here and for sharing this with us. I wanted to if you have anything else you'd like to share, I want to first ask you now. Not that this hasn't been absolutely fantastic, but any last words or thoughts that you'd like to share with the group?
I just want to thank you for the invitation. It was really interesting to join and to be in touch with you. If you have any other questions, you can send me a message. I'm always able to help. Probably in 30 minutes, I cannot summarize a journey of 2 years. But if you have any specific question or a technical question, please don't hesitate to raise it, right? And thank you.
I appreciate that. That's actually a really good segue here into the closing. So, and thank you again. I can't thank you enough, Susanna, and I'm going to be sending something your way as a personal thank you. But in the meantime, we wanted to keep this conversation going. We don't want it to stop at these live events. And so, if you're not familiar, if you haven't listened into one of these calls before, I've actually created a customer community Teams team. And so, if you're already in the Microsoft tenant, right there, you have the code to join this team. If not, shoot me an email. I'll add you to this team. And so what we're doing is I'm going to add Susanna into the team, and we can keep these conversations going. In addition, what we're doing in this team is we're posting more things like interviews that I'm having with customers around the world who have done incredible things, like Susanna and the team at VALE. So you can see not only what's possible, but you can get the details behind their journey. Because again, I mentioned this earlier, this doesn't just happen in one day. It took 3 months with VALE to get the first iteration of their bot, and they're consistently improving and iterating on that. And I think that's incredibly important for our customers out there to see the journey, to see how you got there, to see which technologies are being leveraged, how much time this takes, what investment level this requires, etc. So that's step one. Again, please feel free. We'd love to have you join the team, and you'll be able to ask Susanna questions there. And then finally, this event is on demand. So, we obviously did this live, but it's recorded. And so that AKA link right there, aka.ms/teams sh VALE, is available. So you can share this directly with your peers and anyone else you might find or might think might find value in this. So thank you again very much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We already did Q&A, but if you have any questions, please feel free to join the group and let us know. And Susanna, thank you again so much. You're an absolute legend, and we're very fortunate to have you as a partner.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everybody.